I want to start with that inauguration, just because, and I don't have a great memory, but I remember that. What do you remember about that inauguration? Does it seem like 8 years ago?
It's funny. It seems longer ago. For me, it feels like it was 15 years ago. I remember starting in City Hall and having all my staff there and saying goodbye and signing my resignation, and then walking out, and it was cold, 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 and walking out and walking across the park and coming over, and a whole different group of people and a whole different energy, and getting sworn in. And
was it surreal?
It was a little bit surreal. It was, well, it was definitely a little surreal. There's no question about it. And do the inaugural speech, which we kept really short because we knew it was going to be so cold. And then we signed an executive order. I remember that vividly, saying that we were going to support municipalities and counties. We were going to push responsibility down to the local level. We weren't going to pass along any unfunded mandates.
What is your most memorable moment as governor?
It's, my gosh, there's so many. I wish that first term, we went to, I think they told me that we went to 62 funerals. Just fires and floods. Certainly one of the most memorable moments was the going up after the shooting in Aurora and seeing the crime scene, and those images are etched in my brain forever. I think, I don't know, the first time when Catch Secor and Old Crow Medicine Show invited me to come out and play the banjo and sing a little when they're sold out Red Rocks, and having that, no one could believe I was actually out on stage playing a banjo. But then they were appreciative and hooted and hollered a little bit. But then on the second verse, where I sang the first line by myself, and they couldn't believe I sang, and the roar just came at me, and I got this sense of what musicians, in politics you get lots of feedback, some not so good, some great, but musicians who are good, right? A sold out show at Red Rocks, the energy that comes out of that crowd is, it's a unity. In other words, it's kind of a metaphor for what we've tried to do in these 8 years is do everything we could to try and bring the state together, to try and help get the urban areas, to help the rural areas, to make the state one.
There you go. Your next career, banjo player.
Exactly, musician.
Who knows? Who would have thought you'd be governor?
Trust me, everybody knows I'm not going to be a professional banjo player.
So, what has been your most impactful achievement, do you think?
There's sometimes the little things feel almost more powerful, but we came in and we were 40th in job creation. We were really one of the lagging economies coming out of that Great Recession. And I think, I'm a very progressive person. I think want to have more opportunities for all people. I want to, reform the education system, more skills, because I think skills are going to be very, very important in the decades ahead. But you can't do any of that without an economy, without jobs in an economy. So I think we went and all over the state, we did that bottom up, all 64 counties, asked each county what they wanted to imagine in 50 years what their economy should look like and how could the state help them get there. And we heard kind of the same stuff everywhere. We heard, cut the red tape and bureaucracy, make the state pro-business, high standards, but pro-business, figure out more access to capital, celebrate innovation and entrepreneurship, make this a mecca for entrepreneurs, advertise the state, not just as a destination for tourists and vacations, but for young entrepreneurs that might want a place to start their business. And I think to go, the last 2 years, we're the #1 economy in America, and I think that's a strong foundation that I think Jared Polis can build on, right? That we can keep that state moving forward and continue. Now obviously we've got issues around affordable housing and transportation infrastructure. There's lots for the new governor to do, but at least he's got some positive momentum.
So besides age, which I feel that too, how have you changed most? over the last 8 years?
You know, I think I have, when I first came in, I'd been mayor for 7.5 years, so I understood politics, and I always liked people. I was the one that always got people together. If other people were feuding, I could kind of,
mediate it.
Unruffle the feathers. But I didn't understand partisan politics. I really had never been involved to any significant extent in Democratic politics. And when Governor Ritter decided he wasn't going to run for re-election, and he called me and said he'd support me. He wanted me to take his place. And then Ken Salazar said he'd support me, and he wanted me to, and I didn't have to go through a primary. So in a funny way, I'd been insulated, even when I got elected governor, from a lot of the push and pull of partisan politics. And that's been a learning process for all 8 years. But I certainly think I understand it now at a much higher level than I ever did before, and appreciate the difficulties of trying to get people to, put the state ahead of their party.
What has been the most hurtful criticism you've received?
It's funny. You do get calluses on your heart, and that when people attack you again and again about one thing or another, it doesn't become as hurtful as you might expect. I guess the stuff that probably that bothered me at the time the most, when I was trying to build bridges with the sheriffs and trying to reestablish that we were all going to work together. I went up there and was very candid and, tried to expose myself to them as a gesture of trust. And there were a couple bad apples that really just wanted to, try to embarrass me, do whatever they could to hurt me before a re-election.
Was it gotcha?
Yeah, it was a gotcha. But you learn from those things, right? And I still believe you trust people. I still believe you expose yourself and trust people's better angels to control the moment. But you also you don't want to create too much of an opportunity if they are not trustworthy, right? And some people just aren't trustworthy.
So you are known for the occasional slip of the tongue.
Well, as one of my staff says, for all my good traits, one reality is that my foot is never too far from my mouth.
So what is the most memorable?
Oh, I don't know.
Shall I remind you of some?
Sure, go ahead.
I'll just say Joe Garcia in a childhood literacy event with 40 kids there, and you introduced him not as the rising rock star.
Yeah.
Do you remember?
I do.
He was the rising sex star.
I know. That was, there are things that, and part of it is we all have the wiring in our brains, and I'm a moderate dyslexic, which means I don't see the pattern of words in the same way that everybody else does. But they're also not sure whether it does, that sometimes when you think something, that you're going to say something, that words don't get interchanged or something else. Anyway, as I said at the time, Joe Garcia is truly a rock star, but there's a broad interpretation of the category.
And you worked Jesus into one of your State of the States.
Yeah, I mean, well, that again, there I was. I try to, and I think I've gotten better at this, but I try to be more there when I'm speaking publicly. In other words, trying not just be reading a speech, but trying to really be with people. And so what happens for me, at least, is I immerse myself in that moment. And it's as if I'm talking to an old friend. I get to that point, and then you make a mistake and you go, oh Jesus. And it's like, oops, you can't do that. You're the governor. But you
do.
But I do, and I can't remake myself, and I don't want to remake myself. It's part of what gives me the energy to do this job every day is to be immersed and to be myself and not to worry about it. Right?
You know how to laugh at yourself.
That's for sure. Well, I've had a lot of practice.
So you don't have a most memorable.
No, I don't think that there's so many to choose from. That would take too long. What
will you miss most about being governor?
a couple things. I think the thing that will be most difficult, and over 8 years, some of your staff comes and goes, but having a team of people where you're taking on some of the toughest problems and challenges that society has, and you're coming up with the best solutions you can, and you're trying to get people to join together and implement things. I mean, it's hard work, but it's exciting and engaging in a deeply emotional way. I'm definitely going to miss that. And some of the staff that Roxanne White was my chief of staff for the last several years when I was in the city, my first 4 years as governor, and there was a whole group of people that we worked with both in the city and the state. And so that was one transition when they all left at the end, or most of them left at the end of the first term. And then into my second term, you kind of build another team. And I think I'll definitely miss that team. I also will miss all the people that I've engaged with. Like we had a reception last night for the outdoor recreation industry, which we've really worked hard to invigorate and really give them strength and make Colorado their home and kind of make Colorado a symbol of outdoor recreation, and outdoor recreation may be a symbol of Colorado. But last night we had that mixed in with the environmentalists, the environmental community. And they're natural allies that haven't really spent that much time together. And I'm going to miss that convening, that bringing different people together that have a natural affinity to help each other, kind of an alignment of self-interest. I find that exhilarating, just kind of uplifting. And I went home last night to Robin, and she asked me how my day was. And I just said, my gosh, the day had a bunch of meetings. I had to, we had interviews with Circuit Court of Appeal judges for the state circuit, for the State Court of Appeals. And, it was all, interviews, work. And then I got and did this reception for, 2 hours at the end of the day. And I was ready to go to another one and another one, and another one. I'm enough of an extrovert that I take energy away from those kinds of situations.
Shaun, we got to wrap, so we're going to do like 1 or 2.
We only have a couple more? Oh, man.
She can do a few more. We started her so late.
She did 20 minutes, but I'm giving her 20 minutes.
Okay.
No.
If you had it to do over, what would you do differently?
I think I would have when we did the gun safety issues, I would have taken a little more time. I think some of my staff, some of the legislators wanted to it's just going to be hard work and people are going to be so angry we should just push it through. I don't think there's anything lost by engaging and listening to people. And I think if I were to go back over the whole 8 years, there's probably a number of places where, if I were doing it again, I'd listen harder. I mean, I'm a pretty good listener, but those times when I've really taken the time and really tried to listen harder is really when some of this. I mean, one of the things which people wouldn't say is as gigantic as turning the economy around, but when we got the environmental community and the oil and gas industry to spend 14 months together and to create the only comprehensive methane regulations in the country, that was from listening. I mean, that's really where that came from. And I would have done.
I've got water for you right there.
I'm okay.
Okay.
Anyway, but certainly more listening.
So we mentioned Teddy being 8 years old. My kids were 8 at the time. I just felt so much for him because I have a son, and he has some ADHD, so staying still and
So does Teddy a little bit.
Yeah.
So do I.
So how has this job taken a toll on your family?
Well, I'm going to put up a cough drop. Can you pass me a little water? I think a cough drop. I've had this. I'm just about finished this cold.
I had a sinus infection. I'm on antibiotic right now.
Are you really?
So, gosh, it happened right after the election.
Oh, really? Mm-hmm. Well, better after than before.
Yeah, I guess. Just had a headache all the time when it was during the election.
Shaun, what's your question? Just repeat.
That's the question again.
How has this job taken a toll on your family?
Well, I think Teddy has blossomed and bloomed and grown, and he's doing great in high school. I think he's so much better, more well adjusted than I was when I think about how much I struggled in high school. And obviously I went through a divorce. We got separated about 1.5 years into my first term, and Helen lives a block away. I see her all the time. Teddy alternates weekends and spends every Monday and Tuesday with me, every Wednesday and Thursday with her. I think we're still kind of a family. We're just a different kind of family. But I think she just felt so uncomfortable in the whole First Lady system. And she's one of the best nonfiction writers in America, right? And yet for being a First Lady and with all those expectations was a burden. And it's a real difference for me to be married to Robin, who loves politics. And she loves going to events, and she loves thinking about politics. And, she takes it on, with both hands. And that's a huge difference to wake up every morning and to be with someone who's happy, that your presence and what you do every day makes them happy. I am grateful that, when we got married, Helen came to our wedding. Helen's been very supportive on every facet. And I tried to be supportive of her career as well.
Well, you said Teddy, sometimes it was hard for him to see TV ads against you. Just to hear people criticize Dad.
Well, I think that, especially the attack ads, in 2014, there were one after another, just mean-spirited attack ads that really didn't have much fact or basis to them. And, he'd get questioned and teased at school, but it made him tougher. I had a couple kids come up to me the other day, and Teddy's doing debate, and they were on the debate team with him, and they said, he was the first debater last Saturday in the competition. He killed it. He was the best of anybody all day. You would have been so proud of him. And so,
to go, see, that's part of being governor. It's a lot of hours too.
It is. I missed a lot of baseball games. I missed a lot of soccer games. And that is hard. But I get, the last couple of years, I get to half his games. That's my goal. And debate, he kind of doesn't want me to come to debate, but I think I'm gonna sneak in.
Sneak in. The governor's here. He's sneaking in. So who's your favorite reporter?
Geez, I don't know. I'd want somebody who'd been had experience 10 o'clock reporter for a long time, and then got into politics.
Maybe at the same time. All right. Did you get a two-shot? Because I just want to.
Earlier.
Okay, then I want just one comment on Gallagher, because we talked about that, and I was going to do a follow-up story on Gallagher, so maybe we could just get a preview, and I won't use it until you guys do your thing.
Sure.
You set?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Well, I think that the truth is that Gallagher, when in combination with Tabor, makes our Constitution almost impossible. And certainly it has put tremendous pressure on rural communities, smaller towns that don't have the ability to ramp up their mill levies. The communities just aren't wealthy enough to support it. And it's an unfair burden on rural Colorado. So I think we are going to, try to address it as aggressively as we can. We've been working on it, trying to think through how to do something that would be meaningful. And I think this will be one of the last things we do will be to go after and address that conflict between Gallagher and the Constitution. I think there's some legal ways to look at it that might help resolve it in a way that protects rural Colorado.
Okay. You know what I didn't have you talk about, and if you wanted to mention anything, just so, there's so many things, but civil unions was,
Yeah.
people ask me, what's the most memorable moment for you down at the Capitol covering the legislature? I say it was civil unions, and they're like, civil unions?
It was
and
such a-
it was so you got choked up, remember?
Yeah, trust me, I will never forget that. I've been meaning to go and try and find clips from, all those important times. And if you're going to ask what news clip, had impact, it was that the news clips from when we did civil unions caught the moment, and they really did. That room was as filled with emotion as any place I've ever been in my life, and you just felt the wave of going back to when I opened Wine Coop in 1988, and in 1989 our manager left, and we hired the bar manager, Chris Horner, who was gay, and didn't think anything about it. And then our customers complained, and then the whole restaurant kind of came together and said, we're united. I don't know. It's funny. It's almost like it was leading up to that day when civil unions became legal in Colorado.
Gives me chills thinking about it. It's a big day.
Yeah.
It's